Good morning, chaps and chapesses. This is a test ride today. I wasn't particularly happy with the angle of sorry about that, my music just came on. I wasn't particularly happy with the angle of the camera shot. There was too much of the dashboard and not enough of the surroundings, so I've got a new camera mount on my helmet, and I'm just going to have a ride to work and check that I've got the angle of the camera just right. So we'll have a look at the footage when I get to work. Yes, normally I have to go through that little gap over there to go down there because the barrier doesn't recognize the size of my bike, but the barrier's up today, so I can ride out in a normal way, which is great. I shall put it into S1, which is my favourite mode for riding the bike. It's quite simple, because it's obviously the DCT transmission. It has 4 modes. You have drive, which is the most economical, and it changes up gears very, very quickly. I could be doing 40-50 kilometers an hour and I'll already be in 6th gear. Now the reason it does that is to obviously save fuel, but when you live in the Middle East, particularly the UAE, and you have a motorbike that doesn't use a lot of gas when compared with a car, you don't really worry about that too much. Okay, visor down, hopefully give us a little bit better sound quality. And then let's talk a little bit more about the bike. So this is a 2025 Honda Africa Twin. It is a DCT, which stands for dual clutch transmission. Basically this has 2 clutches. Clutch number 1 controls the odd gears, 1, 3 and 5. Clutch number 2 controls the even gears, 2, 4 and 6. So when I'm riding, and say I'm in 3rd gear, 4th gear is already engaged. It's just not activated. And then when it's time for the bike to change gear, 4th gear is ready to go. What this results in is an incredibly smooth gear change. Now this is the 2025 model of the Africa Twin, so it has the 3rd generation of DCT, and the older generations had a bit of a reputation for being a bit jerky when you take off. There'd be nothing and then all of a sudden you'd be having drive. This one is, the 3rd generation is much smoother. It's actually, I can pull away from a standing start smoother with this system than I can with a clutch system. The other reason why this is such a great bike for me is one of the signs of age is I'm starting to get arthritis in both hands, so not having to pull a clutch on all the time is fantastic for me. I test drove the manual version of this, the one that had the 21-inch front wheel, this Adventure Sport has the 19-inch front wheel, which makes it much better on roads, much more nimble. So I found that even after an hour's drive, my hand was starting to ache because of the using the clutch all the time and the arthritis. The other thing which is great is it also has cruise control. So I do not have to worry about keeping the throttle open on sections of the road like this, which is fantastic, really. Now, the speed limit on this road is 100 kilometers an hour, but all the roads in Dubai have a 19 kilometer per hour addition to the speed cameras. So if the speed's 100 kilometers an hour, everybody does 120 kilometers an hour. There's a speed camera right there. Now you might be wondering why it is I just went past it at 124 kilometers an hour, but there was no flash. I didn't get done for speeding. Well, that's because technically I'm not speeding. If I switch this over to Apple CarPlay, you'll see in the top right hand corner there, even though it's showing 124 kilometers on the main display, this one's more accurate. I'm actually only doing 116. So there's an 8 kilometer error on the speedo of the Africa Twin. Now this is standard, this is normal. Cars have it, it's usually not quite as large. With my Wrangler, for example, there's a 4 kilometer an hour error. It just means that there's a margin for error. If you're driving your car at the speed limit and you speed up just slightly, you still won't be going over the speed limit. So it gives you a little bit of a cushion there. Interestingly enough, that used to be the case for Abu Dhabi as well. But a few years ago, Abu Dhabi got rid of the error. So if the speed limit in Abu Dhabi is 120 kilometers an hour, the speed cameras are set at 120 kilometers an hour. But in order to compensate that a little bit, what Abu Dhabi did was, where the highway speeds were 120 and the cameras were set at 140, they left the cameras set at 140, but now the highway speed is 140. Someone once asked me, how do you stay safe riding a bike in the UAE? And I have to say, I better make sure I ride safe for the rest of this journey, otherwise I'm going to look like a bit of an idiot. But the easiest way to ride safe in the UAE on a bike is to assume that everyone driving a car is Donald Trump. Because he's going to do something stupid and he's not going to give you any warning about it. As I said, just assume that every single driver on the road is going to do something. They're not going to indicate, they are just going to do it. So when I was taught to ride many years ago, the guy who taught me to drive made a statement, and the statement was, whenever a motorbike is involved in an accident, the only person to blame is the guy riding the motorbike. Now, before you all start putting things in the comments, don't bother. I know that statement's not true. A very good friend of mine years ago was sitting at a set of lights on his bike and a car that was coming in the opposite direction suddenly just veered off course and smashed right into him. Both his legs and an arm. Now the reason that happened was that the man driving the car was actually dead. He had had a massive heart attack about 100 meters before he hit my friend, and he was actually dead by the time, so the car was careering out of control because sadly the driver had died of a heart attack and it ploughed into. But the point the guy was trying to make was that bikes need to ride defensively.